The danger of a double story. I am a storyteller. I love and look forward to enlightening the people around me through stories, real-life stories. The stories that I'm about to tell you this morning are born from the tall tales that we as educators tell our students and families every day, consciously or unconsciously. The title of my presentation is carefully chosen and worded after a compatriot of mine, Chimamanda Adichie's The Danger of a Single Story. While she warns of the danger of not telling a balanced story from multiple perspectives, I want to warn you this morning about the danger of a double story. In other words, the danger of saying one thing when we mean something else. Speaking from both sides of our mouths, saying yes when we actually mean no. And I include myself in these examples. To buttress my point, I'm going to give you real-life, practical examples from the field. Examples that span a student's educational life from pre-K all the way through college. The first example that comes to mind is the story of Outlaw. Real name in this case. Outlaw was one of my students during my early years of grade school teaching. In trying very hard to connect with this student, I had the opportunity to have lunch with him one day. Not that he earned it the way others did, but I wanted to know more about the student and how he came to be called Outlaw. He proudly told me that he was born while his mother was incarcerated. Hence the name Outlaw. I tried to hide the disappointment in my face. And then he proudly told me that everybody likes his name and nobody forgets it. Everyone like who? I asked him. He said his friends, his family, his teacher, and even the principal has told him how much she loved his name. He then asked me whether I like his name. I took a deep sigh. I smiled. I said, nice name. A double story. Fast forward to my experience as an immersion school principal. I had always dreaded conferences because that was the time that I received the most complaints from parents. They hear one thing from their child's teacher and see something else on the report card. This particular day, this very angry parent barged into my office and accused me, berated me, of setting a platform of mediocrity where teachers could lie, his words, and get away with it. I listened intently to this very angry parent, and then he went ahead and showed me samples and portfolio of work that he received from his child's teacher, pointing intently at areas of shortcomings. I looked at the work, and lo and behold, anybody who knows quality work will not take that as passing. I tried hard to acknowledge his concerns and balance my comments so that I would not be throwing the teacher under the bus. Each time I tried, he pushed even harder. In the end, I succumbed, and I promised to look into it, to discuss it with the teacher so that we would better prepare his child for success. This brings me to another example. A couple of years ago, couple not as in two, I attended an urban leadership academy at the U of M. Some of you may remember that story. The presenter was asked why he left teaching. He said he left teaching because he failed a particular student whose actions later in life came back and haunted him. He then went ahead and told us about a student who was open enrolled into that school, and he, the presenter, was assigned to be his mentor. Towards the end of the year, this student attacked another teacher, and the school's administration voted to expel him. The presenter stood still, was not courageous enough to advocate for this mentor of his. The student was let go. despite the student's mom's cries and pleas, because she knew that that school was his last chance of getting a good education and graduating probably to something good. The student went back to his dreaded neighborhood school. A year or so later, that student and a group of youngsters participated in a home invasion that turned deadly. They were to be tried as adults. In a community meeting resulting from the outcry of this despicable act by these youngsters, the presenter found out, much to his chagrin, that the student who actually pulled the trigger was that student of his former student and mentee. And believe it or not, the victim of that shooting was the presenter's own mother. The students were involved in a random act of violence that came back and hunted that presenter. He realized too late that the student that he failed to support later turned burglar and, of course, killed his own mother in a random act of violence. This brings me to another example. A couple of years later, I was fighting very hard to get out of bed and get ready for the Friday MESPA Institute. And all of a sudden, the photo of a young girl flashed and revived me. She looked very familiar. I was trying to believe or think where I knew that young girl. During my experience in charge of district alternative education as a principal on special assignment, I was called one day to sub for a principal in a high school. On this very day, follow the story now, a particular student was having a very, very hard time. She was kicking and hitting the uniformed school resource officer at that time. As the principal in charge, of course, I was made aware of the situation. As I approached this student, she turned on me and leveled all the 4-letter words that you can imagine on me. I tried to get her to stop assaulting the uniformed officer. And at one time, I reminded her, I said, be careful what you're doing, because outside the 4 walls of this school, you will not hit a uniformed officer and get away with it. Everybody around thought that that was too harsh, except the officer. Then all of a sudden, the counselor came, with whom she seemed to have a great relationship. He was stroking her on the back. I know, you're having a bad day. This is not you. Show you this, she said. This is me every day when you guys piss me off. And that's how she said it. And then he continued to spill out words of reassurance, saying things like, it's okay, it's okay. I was ready to explode. But I found myself saying under my breath, it is not okay, as if afraid to be heard. Finally, the counselor led her to his office. Mom was put on speakerphone. As soon as Mom heard the cries and the shouts in the background, she yelled, who is that mother effer making my baby cry? And she hung up and said she was coming to school, and I was gently advised not to meet with that parent. Mom came and took a child with her. No consequences were imposed for hitting the officer or being verbally abusive towards staff, including the administrator. Now, fast forward to 2 years later. There was a fight in a home on the east side of St. Paul. Later I found out that home, by the way, because one of the staff members actually worked in our building, in my new building. 3 people were involved in that fight. 2 were in serious condition and 1 was critically injured. So that morning when I woke up, remember when I was revived, was the announcement that the one in critical condition lost her life. I later found out that that student or person who lost her life was that same girl who assaulted the officer in high school and insulted staff that lost her life. I so badly wanted to attend that student's funeral, just to look at that mother in the eye and tell her in so many words why she failed as a student and how we as educators nourish the platform for that failure. Also, during my district level gig, I had the opportunity to visit an after-school program in a high school. I observed this teacher interact with a couple of students. One student brought his work. The teacher hardly looked at it and said, "Great, great, wonderful, good job, good job." I wanted to see the work that she praised so well, so I stretched my neck. Sentences were incomplete and no major word, like those Greek words, were spelled correctly. Another student brought his work. The teacher looked at it, provided a lot of wonderful feedback, constructive in nature, and actually gave him pointers on how to improve his work. I lingered just to talk to this teacher and kind of maybe understand the reaction to the two different students. The teacher insisted that, yes, if she told that first student that his work was not up to par, he would tear down that classroom. He would flip tables, chairs, throw tantrums. So she believed that she took the best possible action. Imagine what message we're sending to that student. Now, as an adjunct college professor, I have had many conversations with deans who are under constant pressure to increase enrollment and actually keep their adult students happy. I happen to teach one student who graduated summa cum laude undergrad, straight A, as she loved to say. Before classes started, she contacted me and said, I'm looking very much forward to taking your class. I just want to let you know that I've never gotten any grade lower than an A. I said, wonderful. I wish the same for you, and I know you work very hard to earn it. At the end of the semester, unfortunately, this student fell short of earning an A. She got a grade of B and took me through a very, very difficult time. She commented on my grading, my preparation, etc. I was under immense pressure to change that grade, but I could not, in clear conscience, change her grade to an A. Fast forward, a couple of years later, our paths crossed again. She approached me and said she wanted to talk to me. My heart was beating at this. I thought it was going to be physical talk. But she went ahead and apologized for the way she treated me when she earned a grade of B, and told me that, in retrospect, that was the best grade she ever got. She went on and talked to me about her life, how she got married to a foreigner and relocated to his country. As an American and a native speaker of English, her profession of choice was supposed to be English, teaching English in a secondary school. Unfortunately, this country requires a timed entrance exam, like general studies, before taking the teacher preparation courses. Needless to say, this student failed woefully. She went into a deep depression and questioned the kind of education that she got. How she was made to believe that she was this perfect student, whereas international standards and other conditions proved her, or us, because we have to take blame in that, wrong. Finally, I tell you all this because our culture of feel-good phenomenon is getting very, very pervasive, especially with regards to the kinds of students that we're educating today. This is particularly very, very detrimental to our immigrant and minority students, whose families actually take everything we tell them literally and at face value. A double story creates an illusion, a reality that does not exist outside the four walls of our school. We as educators should think about what we're doing. We should do this job with courage, empathy, and humanity, and not engage in the deceit of a double story. So let your yes be yes, and your no be no now. My friends, you better let your yes be yes, and your no be no. Thank you for listening. You better let your yes be yes, and your no be no.